I can post on my community tab, can't I? Because Discord won't record that. Should be fine. The only reason I didn't do it last time is because I was worried that my window would be recorded live.
I will also post it.
The only problem is I don't know what to post. I haven't got a link to the video. Are you able to post a link to it? I mean, send me a link.
Yeah, I think so.
Already live, is it? Awesome.
Yep. And then let's see here. Let's put it in our chat in Discord.
Okay. Copy message link. Should do it. Oops. Of course, Discord has to butcher the link.
Of course it does.
That's so annoying. Well, at least, while we're faffing about doing this stuff, people can show up.
Mm-hmm.
So prepared.
We're professionals, man. Professionals.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, done. Is that you typing?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very subtle. Not like a big, loud, clanky keyboard like some people have. Unless you do have that and it's just really quiet for some reason.
Well, it's a little clacky, but it's more thonky. Because that's the sound I like. Oh, look. EB's in the chat. It's Schmog.
Awesome.
Schmoig.
Yeah, I told you we were going to be streaming. Schmoig.
Yeah. Hello, guys.
Hi, guys.
English Bob's going to giggle in the chat for a while. He always ends with giggles.
Yeah.
All right. So I've tweeted it out as well.
How's the volume?
Yeah, I forgot to ask that. Especially on TerminalForLife's end, he was loud last time.
Yeah, like really. To the point at which it was distorting it a little bit, but it was just about hearable though. Listenable, even. Hi, Trishul. This is awesome. I'm psyched for this. Love doing these streams. Hopefully I'll be on the ball like I was last time. Last time, like, I swear the stars aligned.
Yeah, we put you on through your paces last time. It was good.
Yeah.
Apparently nobody has anything to say about the audio.
Yeah.
Utter silence.
Yeah. That could mean either it's crap or it's really good.
Either that or not hearing us at all.
True, that's true. God, I hope not.
Well,
oh, well, that's an easy answer, Joshua. Watch this first and then watch my shouty video.
Yes.
And I wasn't trashing it. Much.
That's good.
I always get really conscious, like, because it's really difficult doing a video like. Have you seen it? The one of those so-called trashing DT scripts.
I got through about 3/4 of it before we started chatting.
It's difficult. It's difficult making that sort of video because I don't want to like insult the person writing it, but at the same time, to do it justice, I feel like you have to be kind of honest. You know? If anything, for educational reasons.
I don't think DT cares because the amount of times other YouTubers have like called him an idiot is just, it's probably many, many times. I know Brody Robertson always talks about disagrees with him very often.
Oh.
So I don't think it's anything new for him.
I disagree with him sometimes, but I don't think he's an idiot.
I don't either. Oh, by the way, is your server private TLC? Yes, it is. It's still private. So here's the thing with the Discord server. I don't know if I want to make it public. And that's not because I don't trust you guys, but it's the other people I don't trust. As the channel gets bigger, I would expect there to be more and more trolls out there. And as small as Tyler's server is, he's already had problems with spam and stuff.
Mm.
So I'd be very worried that if I opened it up to everybody, I'd have to do moderating and stuff, and that just sounds way, way too much like work.
Yeah, it's too much hassle. It's the same reason I don't bother with it.
Yeah. So I've set it up. It gets set up for public, but I haven't invited anybody to it yet. And I don't know if I will. Maybe. I don't know.
The IC.
I waffle back and forth.
Yeah, I probably won't set up a server. Just too much faff, too much kerfuffle.
Yeah,
can't be asked.
Like, it's just... Like, you know, it'll be fun for a while. There'll be like 10 people on there and we'll have a good time. And then it will slowly start creeping up. And there'll be that one guy that you just kind of hate and hates you. And it just causes problems.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to be Tyler, by the way.
Or English Bob if he shows up.
He knows I'm joking.
You know, English Bob's the right troublemaker. We got to watch out for him because he's the biggest troll of them all. Awkward silence.
I watch his streams, but I always lurk. I don't get into the comments section because they're always fun just to watch. Trolls whistle.
I chat with him sometimes. His videos are great. His streams are fun, but he is a massive troll. I think he would happily admit that. And yes, I know he's in chat right now. That's why I'm saying all of this.
All right. Well, what are you going to take us through today, TFL? You're in charge of the driver's seat this week.
Oh God.
Oh God.
Why?
Why did I spring this on you? It's not like I told you that beforehand. I did say. Yeah. What was your quote from earlier? Saying, "Our plan is to not have a plan."
Oh yeah, pretty much. I haven't actually honestly looked to see what I could show you. I've got so much it wouldn't take long to find something like this LSPKG. I don't know what people would really be interested in. By the way, guys and gals, whoever you are in chat, can you let me know if my volume is inordinately loud, like it was in the last stream that we did? If so, I will adjust something, I guess. I could look at CSI3. It's not too big. That's what she said. Awkward. But I don't know.
It was a better joke because it just came out of nowhere.
Those are the best ones. I don't know. This one's kind of a pain in the ass, but I could walk through this, I suppose. Well, I'm actually almost glad that you put me in the so-called driver's seat because that gives me the opportunity to ask you if there's something that you're struggling with lately.
I don't know what regex means. You used it last time, and I have no clue what it means.
Well, for a start, it's regex.
See, I don't even know how to say it. So there you go.
Okay, most people don't. Most people say regex because of regular expressions. I'm mostly mocking them. Some people just prefer to call it regex, even if they know the difference. But the reason I say it's regex is because regular expressions. So I have made a video going on a lot about regex. So I kind of feel like I'd just be repeating myself.
Okay, I'll watch those instead then.
Okay. One thing that has been on my mind for ages, and that is going over positional parameters with you.
Okay.
I mean, like passing arguments to a script kind of thing. Do you think that would be something you'd find useful?
Yep, have at it.
Okay. So I go to the whole test dir thing that I have, where I just basically, as you can see, ram any old crap in there. So
you even have one there that says called random crap. Awesome.
Do I? I don't even know what that is. Okay, that really is random crap. Let's make this random crap something useful. So bash, I'm going to turn this random crap into a bash script. Okay, so echo, I'm going to echo the first positional parameter. So now when I run bash random crap, I could make it executable, but I don't need to. I haven't given any argument to it, so it's not going to show anything. Echo, if it's not given a value, as you know, we'll just echo an empty line. You probably know that. Mm-hmm. But if I give it a thing, then we'll see thing, because that $1 thing has a value. So that's like a really simplified introduction type thing. So you've got 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. And I think in order to get 10 and onwards, you have to use the braces. So you've got 10, 11, and so on and so forth. So that's cool, I guess, if you want to access each individual one and you don't want to do anything particularly complicated. But a lot of the times in programs, you will want to do something more complicated. You will want to iterate over each of those. And then what if you have thing equals thing, or thing, like file, and then you got the file name, or something like that. Maybe multiple parameters, file 1, file 2, file 3, or whatever. And then you've got another flag or something. So it can get quite complicated. I've just spotted that English Bob was asking a question. Before even reading it, I just swear this is probably going to be a troll question, but here we go. Question 1 for TFL. What is the best way to prompt for a yes/no confirmation? Whoa, not actually a troll. Wow. Okay. So everything I just said about the argument passing, you with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So have you done that kind of stuff before?
Just recently on something, but I don't remember what it was. I told you my memory is shit. So,
yeah. Okay, that's cool. So we'll have to do this stream a few times then.
I don't remember anything we talked about last week. Not a thing. I'm kidding.
That's really depressing.
I'm kidding. I was just doing.
I was going to say, wow, great teacher I am. Okay, so one
What's
way
your name again? No, I'm sorry.
One way you can pass multiple arguments is to oh my lord. Okay.
Hey, you want to know what? English Bob's not the only one that can be a troll, man.
That's true. I'm in a stream with a troll right now.
At least
Gentoo.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Beat you to it.
Yeah, that's great.
My God. Okay.
We were in whatever stream we were in the other night. I don't know who we were watching, but you beat me to that too. Then
that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Oh, so good.
I think it was English Bob.
It was somebody. I don't remember what it was. It was somebody. We meet
English
all around the internet.
It's
like somebody's stalking somebody else. It's
yeah. Okay, well, since you're with me so far on that, before I move to the next bit, I might as well address what English Bob said, since you did put me in the driver's seat. And if you have any questions at any point, by the way, just feel free to stop me and ask. Don't hesitate but to ask. That's directed at you, Matt, and anyone in the comment section as well. Okay, so regarding English Bob's question about how to prompt for a yes or no confirmation in a script, this should be pretty straightforward to do. So what I usually do in this particular case, if I want to have a really nice confirmation dialog box, not really a box, but a thing in a script, I would use a while loop. This would make it infinite. So that's an infinite while loop because remember, this colon is synonymous with true. I just used the colon because I'm super elite like that, I suppose. So while true, and then do, infinite loop. And now we can actually print our question. So printf, for example, would you like to fart? I don't know, just it's like some random thing that entered my mind for unknown reasons. Would you like to fart? And then you can say yes or no, so the user knows which characters they can press. Actually, I'm being an idiot. This is a bash script, not a Bourne shell script. So rather than doing that, you can actually put the prompt in with read. So read is going to actually prompt the user because of that lowercase p flag and the text after that actually being the prompt that the user sees. But the main purpose of read is just take from standard input, to take something from standard input and store it for later use. So because I'm using bash, there's a default value of reply, all uppercase, default variable, basically. So I don't have to say reply. I don't have to put anything here for like the variable in which to store the response because it's already there in bash. In Bourne shell, this is not a thing. So yeah. If you didn't press a return to enter this value, you might want to use this lowercase e flag just to say that, because that will do something funky with yeah, whatever. Let's just move on from that because I can't be asked to explain that. But just keep that in mind. If you don't have to press enter to accept this, then you might have issues with that unless you use that e thing if you want to not have like this empty line or something. Anyway, yeah, that was really well explained. So let's continue. And now what I usually like to do is have a simple case statement, case reply in. So, you know, yes, I'm going to use a character class here, not a POSIX character class, just a standard character class. So I'm saying match one of an uppercase Y or a lowercase y, and then I'm going to use a pipe, which is special for case statements. Remember, this is called pattern matching. And this means or, so I think we talked about it in the last stream, actually. So Y or if the user is so, if desires to type that full thing out, they can do that. Then you just, you know, do something based on that. So let's just say you said reply, and that thingy here with 2 semicolons. And it's actually pointless to, now that I think about it, to use a case statement for this, because you could just put that there on its own, and since I'm just printing out what they said, but whatever. So n, whoops, uppercase n or lowercase n, uppercase n, lowercase n, uppercase o or lowercase o, get rid of the s, and there we go. I guess let's make this not so pointless. You said, oh yeah, depends on what the user actually types, doesn't it? Okay, so now let's run this. Crap, I hate when that happens. Run that random crap, and let's say this. So would you like to fart? Sure. You said why, so I would absolutely love to fart. But notice how it's asking me again and again and again if I would like to fart, and I'm not that desperate to pass gas or to pass wind. So, so I need to break out of this. So after every time I've said what I want to do, I've replied basically, I need to break out. And then, you know, do something accordingly. Obviously, this is kind of a silly example, but just imagine I gave you a proper one. But the reason I use this loop is because I might say something dumb. I might say something else, or I might have an empty response, and I want to handle that accordingly. So I could say an error message here. I actually have a function just for error messages. So ignore what this function is, and unless you want to, you're curious about that, in which case I'll go over that in a minute. So I can say error, exit with an exit status. Basically, don't exit because 0 true, so don't exit. And then let's see now, response required or some dumb thing like that. And if that's no good, then if they don't say something, if they don't not say something and they don't say no or yes or some variation thereof, then maybe have another response to say maybe like invalid response. I think I actually do use that sometimes. And both of these, they will, because we're in the while loop and we're not breaking out over here, that means it will continue to ask you over and over and over again until you get it right. So it's assuming I don't balls it up. Where did I balls it up? I balls it up somewhere. What have I done? Oh yeah. Okay, let's do that again. So would I like to fart? There we go. Error, invalid response. Would you like to fart? Response required. Would you like to fart? No, I don't want to fart. There we go. So that is a very decent little way of getting input from the user in a very nice and tidy and robust way with nice output. provided you want to make a script all about asking if the user wants to file. So there you go, and an inordinately, there goes that word again, long explanation for that question you had, Bob.
All right, somebody said, I'm not going to attempt to say that name. You said your S is really high pitched and loud. Oh my God. So who you were talking about? I don't
Yeah, that sounds like the other video, the other live stream we did.
I don't know what your S are. Your S are really loud.
Sibilants.
I was supposed to get that from a single letter. Okay. Well, I turned down the desktop volume a little bit, so hopefully that fixed it. Because it was peaking a little bit, so hopefully that fixed it. Somebody asked, why would you use awk and not a blob? I don't know what that means. So maybe you know what that means. That was English Bob.
Why would you use awk and not blob? What? There's no context there.
Yeah.
That's like saying why would you eat a quiche or a cake, aside from the fact that a cake might be nicer if you're in the mood for a cake versus a quiche. I don't know. I probably should stop talking about food. It made me hungry. But yeah, Bob, I'm going to need some more context for that question. Okay, so back to the original thing. Do you remember where I was?
You had just explained the basics of the I've already forgotten what it was called, but I know what you were talking about.
Okay, cool.
You don't want to ask me the names of stuff, man. Yeah, argument parsing. That's what it was.
And the other name you might be looking for was positional parameters.
Positional parameters. I'm gonna actually, you know what?
Yep.
I'm opening up VimWiki. I'm taking notes.
Okay, that's a good idea. Okay, so trying to think. Okay, so one thing you can do is use a for loop. So I can say for arg, and I could say for arg in every single parameter, and then do it that way. I'm in Bash, which is why I'm using those braces like that. It's a Bashism. But fun fact, I don't know if you know this, but you can actually get rid of that. How cool is that? So this will actually iterate over every single one of the positional parameters. A special thing for loops. I think that's really cool. Maybe it's just me, but I was so happy when I first discovered that. So that will iterate over each of the positional parameters, but it'll only do it once, and it'll only go over each one of them sequentially. And it's very simple, basically. So let's actually, rather than escaping and setting some positional parameters and doing it that way, I'm just going to set the positional parameters right now within this script using the set built in. So I can say set these are parameters. Okay, I'll use the full thing, positional parameters. So those are 4 positional parameters, and it is as though I ran the script at like script, the name of the script, .sh, for example, and then these are positional and so on. It's as though I did that. Just want to get that out of the way. So it just saves me quitting out and going back in over and over and over again, which I'm going to have to do anyway to execute this damn thing because I can't use autoexec. So now I can echo arg, and let's run it. Actually, I do have a thing for that, don't I? How is it you do it? There we go. These are positional parameters. So we get all of them listed. So yes, that's one way to iterate over them. It can be good. So let's say you have some kind of usage output, usage information for the program. So maybe you have a case statement, case arg in ESAC. Maybe the user types in version. So let's set a version string. And maybe that can be like the date. That's usually the kind of version string I use. So now when the user types in --version or -v, lowercase, they can get the version of the program printed out to them.
Oh, cool.
So version string, there we go. And then we need to X out because it's not an error. and they, yeah, we need to X out because we don't want to continue executing the rest of the program. It's pretend there's stuff that you just want to see the version string. That's kind of the point of that. They may also want to get some usage information, like I said earlier. So that can be help or lowercase h. So very standard stuff there. Now, usually for this, I have a usage function, which is this. So I'm just going to grab that and plonk that here. And now I've got this usage thing. This is kind of a template, if you like. I usually just build on this, add what I need. This is, yeah, that stuff again. This is a while read loop and with a here doc. We'll just pretend that's not there. So now I can just have just use usage and then x is 0. And there you go. Now when I run it, with version, say, we get the version string and also an error because I screwed that up somehow. Don't know how I managed that. There we go. There's the version string. But what about if the user wants the help stuff? So they need to know how to use this program. Well, there we go. Now they've got help. So it makes that very simple. So what if you have like file? So let's say the user types in f or file and then the name of a file. Something like that. So this is where we run into an issue. I can say f or f, the user types those things. So if arg, the current argument that the for loop is iterating over, if that is equal to either this or this, then we do something, perhaps have a check to see if that file exists and is a file. So let's say, but this is where we're into an issue, because how do we continue? Because what do we test? Because all we can really do is test with the current argument. So we're screwed. And this is what happened to me when I first got into this stuff. And I was like, damn, I am so screwed. So what I did was eventually find out that the for loop wasn't ideal for this at all. And this is around about when I started to stop using for loops for this purpose. So now, these days, for a lot of years, I actually use a while loop. In most of my programs, even not shell ones which aren't using shell, I will use a while loop. So while the first positional parameter has a value, so in this case, the first positional parameter is going to be this help thing. That's the first thing handed to them. The first argument, the first field, the first argument. I said that, didn't I? You know what I mean. And this n flag, lowercase n flag, is to mean not empty. So while that value is not empty, do this. Now, if you remember from our last stream, remember, stop me if I'm confusing the hell out of you. If you remember from our last stream, the while loop is basically this. While this condition remains true, this condition, these commands will be executed repeatedly as fast as possible. Are you with me so far?
Yep.
Cool. So if now we can actually continue with this thing properly. So instead of case arg, we say case 1. So in case, if you like, the first positional parameter, which we know it has a value, is equal to these. It's still going to work as intended, and this it will work as intended as well. But now we can actually complete this. So if the second, probably going to break your brain a bit now, because it did for me back then. If the second positional parameter is equal, is a file, and if it exists and is a file. But I'm going to negate this. So if it is not, because I want an error message. So if it is not a file, basically, which exists, then just error out. And I'm going to have an exit status of 1. Remember, this is for my error function, which I deleted because I'm an idiot. Okay, let me put that back. There we go. It's for that error function. So now I can say file not found. Typical kind of error message we've probably seen a million times. Well, yeah, okay. Otherwise, no, that's fine, actually. So there is, actually, my bad, I realized what I was trying to do now. So file is equal to that. Now I can handle file whenever I want. So, however, this is still not going to work because, or I mean, no, it won't, because what's going to happen right now is, let's say it's looking at the first positional parameter. It's help. Okay, so it's going to go through this. The first positional parameter is help, so it's not empty. Case is going to look at it and say, well, it doesn't match this, but it does match this, so it'll exit this. So let's make it the file thing. So let's say file is equal to my .bash.c. So it sees the file. It sees that this matches, rather. Now we test if it exists and is a file, the second positional parameter. The second positional parameter, in this case, is this. This is the first positional parameter, this is the second one. And you might be wondering, well, what happens if you have something but a file? So these are params. These are params, are actually invalid params, at least according to this, if I have a check for it, that is. I know I'm jumping around a bit. I do apologize. So if it is not one of these, then we can assume that that's an illegal parameter. So let's have an error message here, error with an exit status of 1, and say invalid argument provided, one or more, invalid argument provided. That should be right, and then exit that. There we go. All right, now we have a check. So those will be invalid parameters or arguments, whatever you want to call them. So it finds these, gets all the way down here. It doesn't match, doesn't match these, so it goes here, and we get the error message. Even if these are valid, we get, say, some random ones, which I imagine there's a load of them here, a load of other options, and they are absolutely valid. This should still work. However, this is not usually the way I do it, which is, it could be quite possible that this is actually not going to work because it's not usually how I do it. So what I usually do is use, oh, that reminds me, shift should go down here. I will explain shift in a second. So shift, I usually put here. I guess before I explain why I'm using shift there, I'll explain why I have shift here. Sorry if this is really fragmented, by the way. So let's say I have the arguments. We've got the script, and we've got an argument, arg1, arg2, arg3. Now, if I use shift, this is the first positional parameter, this is the second, this is the third. If I use shift, this vanishes. So the one on the far left vanishes. This then, argument 2 becomes argument 1, or positional parameter 1, and arg3, positional parameter 3, becomes positional parameter 2. And if I shift again, and so on, and if I shift yet again, we run out of positional parameters, in which case, or at which point, this while loop's condition is no longer valid, so it breaks out of that loop. So that is how I process positional parameters and how I'd recommend doing it if you're not using getops, which is a massive pain in the ass. So now that I've explained that, are you with me so far?
Yeah, I think so. What if they only get, so you put that shift in there, but let's say they only give just the first parameter. Oh,
they just say file.
Yeah.
That's true. That's actually a really good point. So what if the user doesn't provide something for the file? That's exactly the kind of thing I would test for. So we've got a test for if it's not found. But so let's have an elif, and we'll test that second. So what if the second positional parameter is empty, then error 1. I don't know, we can say something like a file required, or imagine some error message if you're choosing the file required, I guess, would suffice for whatever positional parameter they picked. That could work nicely. There we go. I think that'll work nicely. Oh, actually, no, I know what I usually choose. Argument 1 requires something. I'm getting way too caught up in the details. Okay, so that would hopefully address that question you had. So when I was saying that what I usually do is something else, well, that's because I don't usually do it like this. So what I usually do is say is shift. So remember that when I was talking about shift earlier, it's like, arg1, arg2, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I shift here, this goes bye-bye. So now instead of checking for 2, I just check for 1, and then 1 again. And this file thing, I don't have to make that file equals 2 or anything, just 1. So before I shift, what you can do is say the current arg, or just have some sort of thing here. Usually I'll have something like file arg, so that I can keep track of the file arg for when I need to output to the user, the actual argument they chose. You don't necessarily have to do this. It's just a kind of quality of life thing. So file arg equals 1. And then I have to do that before we shift, otherwise we lose what argument they chose. So then we shift. So we're remembering what argument they actually picked. Then we're shifting to get rid of it. And then we're looking at that so-called first positional parameter. But it's not technically. I mean, I suppose it would be in this case because it is the first one I've chosen, but let's ignore that. And yeah, then we do all the testing and stuff. And if it passes those tests, and by the way, I should point out at this point, I would suggest not running actual commands because at this point, we haven't done any dependency checking. And it's usually after this when I would start looking at dependencies to make sure the user has programs that this thing might use. So I would suggest not making any directories, doing all that kind of stuff. Even though it's core utils, you still probably might be good to just check that those executables are accessible, just in case. I'm not sure why they wouldn't be, but maybe somebody's in a weird Gentoo system. Just, I don't know, they've got some pretty weird setup.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What if it? You've kind of explained it, but I think my brain didn't quite pick it up. If let's say you have a script that has multiple positional parameters in it, and you have this file thing going on, and you've shifted, so that first arg is gone. What if file isn't actually, well, it's only going to shift if, so that shift is only going to work if file's the one that they picked. So what if it's like the third one instead of 2?
Oh, so like what if they picked some other, imagine this is totally a valid flag. What if they picked that and that did its thing and that's all very well and wonderful. Then they chose file. Yeah. Okay. Well, the same applies. It will do the exact same thing. But remember, this will be the first positional parameter when, let's actually, I'll show you. So let's have a thing called flag. And we'll do this here, flag. And if the user chooses that flag, just, I'll use echo. So echo flag. We'll just spit it out for the user. There we go. So what if they do that? Well, when it looks at the first positional parameter and it sees flag, the while loop's going to basically see that it's not valid here, it's not valid here, not valid here, but it will say, oh, this is valid, and then it'll echo it out. But then it will go to the next positional parameter, but it's shifting at the end, remember. I probably didn't emphasize this enough because it was an afterthought. I forgot about shift. So this shift at the end, after every single time it processes one of these, it's shifting at the end of this while loop.
Okay.
Sorry, this while loop. So once it's done with flag, the first positional parameter once again becomes the next parameter that the user actually gave, which is file. And then everything I said earlier still applies. It will still work fine.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the magic's quite largely down to the shifting. A lot of this really just comes down to the while read loop, some kind of way of testing, like an if statement or a case statement, and then shifting at the end. You have to shift at the end, otherwise it won't work properly.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. That's good. So I have a totally stupid question. It has very little to do with anything you just said.
Okay.
And you may not even know the answer, but my question is, why do they reverse the end? So like you have case and then you have case in reverse. You have if in reverse. Why is it that way? Why not just, because like in other programming languages, when you have an if statement, you just have end if or something like that. I'm just wondering why it's this way.
You have to ask the developers really of the shell. I imagine it's just so that you can look at it and easily see, well, that's the end of it because it's in reverse. It's the opposite end. Maybe that's, I don't know.
I said it was a silly question. It was just. I've always wondered. It just seemed weird.
A lot of these syntactical things are totally different in the language. I know what you mean. You've got Vim scripts is if and an end if. In Perl, you've got if, then the condition, and you use braces for that. And then, if I remember correctly, you've got Python, which is just if. Can't remember what the condition syntax is like, but there's no semicolon, there's not even like then or anything like that. You just have if, something for the condition, and then I think that's it. There's no thing to end it because it's all with tabs, isn't it? Yeah. Python's interesting like that.
Haskell has a whole bunch of like question marks and $ signs and stuff. mean different things. It's weird.
That sounds horrendous.
It is. It's bad.
Haskell is not for me.
Joshua Lee wants to know when you're going to switch to Emacs. I'm just
never. I value the muscles in my fingers.
I think we've lost the chat. That's pretty much. They went on for about 5 minutes just talking about your fart script. Emotionally, that was English Bob, of course.
Yeah, of course it would be. Yeah.
Schmoig, whatever his name is. However you say that. Once parameters are explained, maybe you guys could also explain functions since they're connected.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I mentioned this in the last stream, but I can go on about functions again. Might as well. Are you okay with all this? Do you have any questions?
I think I understand that. One of these days, I'm going to go through and ask you the different checks that you can run, because they're like the N, and then you have if it's a directory, which is D, right? And then F is file, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know 3 of them, but there's a whole bunch of those checks, right?
Yeah. So basically, just talk about test. Really, I could do that after we've or I've answered whatever this other question was, if you like.
Sure.
Okay. So let's get rid of all this guff and gubbins. We don't need any of that nonsense, do we? Bunch of nonsense. Right. What was the question? The other person's question.
Functions.
Functions, that's right. So you can either write a function, which is, I believe, a keyword, then the name of the function, which is a shell's idea of word, and it cannot start with a digit, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that in the last stream. And you can optionally have braces here, sorry, parentheses, but you actually don't need them when you're using a function keyword. And then you've just got your simple opening and closing braces. So this is how you declare a function, and then you can say echo hi. And then when I type in function, let's say I'm on the command line right now, and I type in I type in word, well then we'll get hi. So that's what happened if I actually executed this. Or I suppose I could just kind of run it, couldn't I? So let's say word. Oh, there we go. I forgot to save. Okay, so yeah, echoes hi. That's one way of declaring a function. The other way, which I usually use because it's quicker, is that. And I quite like spacing that out as well, but that's totally optional. It's just a stylistic thing. So if I save this and execute it, we still see hi. It's working just fine. So it's up to you how you want to do that. Just remember, you can't start it with a word, a number, because that's invalid. There are some other things as well, which I can't remember. I can't remember. I think there's a rule where you can't have a hyphen. Yeah. Oh, word not found. Okay. Let's try that, 'cause I can't remember. Oh, you can get away with that. I think you can get away with, I know you can get away with underscores. I guess you can get away with hyphens. It's actually possible to make a function which is just a colon, which is part of what you might have seen before, which is a fork bomb. I can't remember how it works. Something like that. I don't know. It's something weird. Have you ever heard of a fork bomb?
No.
It's kind of a cheeky little malicious thing to run. It just constantly spawns loads of new processes over and over again, eats up your RAM until your system crashes. I think there's actually things in place now to prevent this being a problem, but back in there, it used to be a problem. It's kind of cool though. It basically, you create a function called, to put it in a less obfuscated way, you've got say func, as in like the function, the name of the function is func, and that's equal to func, or rather that's going to run itself basically, and we're going to use this job thing here to put that in the background, and well then you just run it. You run func, so func will constantly execute itself. And I think there's something else as well. You meant to like do something else. Maybe it's like func again. I can't remember, but yeah, it's kind of dumb. But anyway, it's just a little fun fact for you there that you can use a colon. I don't recommend using a colon because then you can't use that for true. So yeah, the general gist is though you've got like word and then you put whatever the commands you want in it. And the good thing about a function is though, we talked about argument passing earlier, so you can actually, a lot of that, if not all of it, can actually be done with a function, which is really cool. So you can actually have really elaborate like flags and stuff for your little functions that you set for your bash environment, which is pretty cool, or your ZSH environment. I think I've pretty much done with functions.
Yeah, you talked about them last time, so
yeah. So how long until I install Emacs?
Yeah.
Forever.
So here's a question for you, and this has little to do with Bash itself because you can use it in ZSH, but a lot of times in like Bash RCs you see both aliases and functions. But an alias just I'm gonna see if I got this right. So an alias just is like a shortcut to something else, right? But where a function can actually like run a script or something, right?
Kind of. An alias can actually run codes as well, like it runs actual code. So the main difference, I think, with an alias and a function, aside from the fact that a function is actually a programming concept, I guess you say, and so can do a ton more. But an alias is actually expanded. I believe it's expanded just before it's executed. Now, I know last time you had an issue with expanding. You were looking at it from an English point of view. It's not to make bigger in this context. It's to expand to a given value. Sorry. So if we have alias ls is equal to ls and color auto or whatever it is, what happens is the shell will look at ls and it'll be like, oh, and keeping in mind this is before it's executed it, oh, this is equal to ls color auto. So it will immediately expand to that. Then it will execute it. Whereas a function, it literally will execute a function called func, for example, and then do the commands within that function. There's no expansion going on as far as I know.
Okay. Yeah, I think I knew that. It's just sometimes you get confused. Joshua Lee asks, he'd like to get the time of day and change the GTK theme in a script. So you can use something like GS settings to change the GTK theme from the command line, I think. So you could probably do something with that.
Yeah, I've done that before, G settings. Let's see. I don't think have I got installed? Okay, so really cool little program. I vaguely remember talking about this in one of my shell notes videos.
I'm pretty sure so you were the one that I got it from.
Cool. So you can do G settings, list schemas. So you've got schemas. Are you at all familiar with the concept of associative arrays?
No.
Yeah, I thought that might have been a bit stage last.
I know the declare arrays in like a D menu script, but I don't know really how they work. I don't know if they're the same thing or not.
What about if I said key value?
Nope.
Does that mean anything? Okay. What a key value is basically key equals value. It's super, super basic like that. Really, it's just a key which is equal to something. Kind of like how you have a folder in a drawer type thing, and that folder is called something, and then inside that folder you've got the value, the something, the pieces of paper or whatever.
How's that different from a variable?
But the reason I said that is because an associative array, which is a form of a type of variable, actually is basically just a set of key values. A regular array is just a set of values, but an associative array is a load of key values.
Okay.
You're confused, are you?
A little.
Okay.
But, I think I'll get there.
Okay.
Some more context.
So the reason I brought up all that stuff is because the schemas are basically a key, and the values are what they call keys, which is really confusing to me. So this is at least how I see it. So if I say, I don't know, I'm trying to remember how to do this. It's not often I use this. So list keys for org, gnome, .desktop, .privacy, or actually let's go for .sound. So these are the keys in, oh yeah, they are keys in that context. Yeah, it's kind of really convoluted, but basically you've got the type of settings as a category, and then in that category you've got a load of key values themselves. Like this is so bad. It's really convoluted. It's really good, and the registry thingamabob in Windows actually works a very similar way. This is just better. So if I wanted to show the value for something specific, I can't really hear you do it. I think it's just something like theme name. By default, it should output. Okay, apparently not. Get, that's it. So by default, if you want to get something, just use a get thing. So get in this schema the key theme name. So I think maybe I shouldn't have started off calling these schemas keys, because if you're not familiar with associative arrays or nested associative arrays, that's going to just be really confusing. Multi-dimensional, that's the word I was looking for, multi-dimensional associative arrays. Why was I bringing that up in this video? Wow. Anyway, so that would be how you'd want to get that. So that's how you could get, for example, the theme name, if you wanted to do that. But obviously you want to set it. That's how we got to this in the first place. So you just do set, and then the theme name, and I can't remember how it's done. I think it's theme name equals, and then something. So I could say name. Maybe it's not that then. Maybe it's space. And yeah, okay. So now if I get that, once again, it's name. So now I really, really want to set that back to what it was, because I don't know what the heck that's for. And then if I get it again, it's back to free desktop. So that's how you can get and set. And there is somewhere a value for the GTK thing. No idea, but maybe I'll find it. GTK settings. Oh, okay. Well, it is somewhere. What you can do, this is what list recursively. We'll list all of them, and then I can just grep for, I don't know, case insensitively, GTK theme or something. Let me just do another grep for theme. I'm not too bothered about being efficient or whatever when I'm just on the command line. So GTK, there we go. So this is the schema, this is the key, and this is the value for that key. So if I wanted to change from Adwaita, which is what I'm currently using, which I'm sure you're so happy about. So if I can I can set org.gnome. Oh crap! Let's run that other thing again, because it's gone and vanished it. Okay, whatever. You can probably tell where I was going with that. Mm-hmm. It's the get, set, and then the key that I just found and have completely lost now, unless I scroll all the way up. So that's kind of the gist of how you would handle that.
And then it would just be, to finish this question, to get the time of the day, you just use something like...
oh, yeah.
It's just date, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can just then you could just create like an if statement or something, or a while loop to change the GTK theme based on what time the output data is, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. That would actually be really cool. Yeah, it's cool. That's a good idea. Damn. I'm surprised I didn't think about that a long time ago, because that would have been really useful. What are you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Printf itself, as you can see here, actually can show the time and date and basically anything you hand to the date command. So if you do date and then like plus F, oh yeah, it's that, isn't it? Then we'll see the same thing. Well, printf is a built-in. It's built into the shell, so there's no need to really use the date command. The date command is really useful, but most of the time people can just use printf command. Sorry, printf built-in, but that is for bash. Bourne shell, or a derivative, obviously, doesn't support this date to string f time type stuff. I say string f time for people who are familiar with that in other languages, such as OR, Perl, Python, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this person's name, Milkius, something like that. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say, someone asked, can you give the advantages of learning Bash scripting to a very advanced extent? I know Bash enough to basically create any dirty little script, but is there an advantage to learning more?
So essentially, what is the advantages of learning, of spending years and years and years obsessing over Bash and all its nuances, like I've done? None. Just kidding. You can write more efficiently. It makes debugging much easier, because if you understand how all of these moving parts work, it's so much easier to fix things. You can get involved in the development of other people's things. For example, I'm right here helping you guys learn, and that's cool. So if you would enjoy this kind of stuff, then you too can do the kind of things that we're doing. But as far as like having your own scripts and stuff, it just makes sure that you type these things out efficiently. Actually, I said type out. What I meant was you can actually develop, I guess, this stuff efficiently. But as far as literally typing this stuff out, you don't want to spend too long typing out, stuff that's just going to take you forever versus the more efficient to type out approach. So not only are you going to write more efficient code, but you're going to be more efficient at writing more efficient code. So there's all sorts of reasons like that why I would say it's worth learning more advanced bash usages. You can learn a lot of shortcuts if you like. Just like any language, there are shortcuts, or most languages I imagine there are shortcuts, ways to do things more efficiently, whether it's regarding code execution or the time it takes for you to type stuff out. But I can't stress enough how helpful it is to have this amount of knowledge. When it comes to debugging, I can just look at a script, and if it's not working, it doesn't take me too long to figure it out, unless it's just something dumb. Like there was this thing a while ago with Zany, or Tyler, he was working on something, a really simple shell script, so simple, and we were both looking at it like, what? Why is this not working? Like it was embarrassing, honestly. I should have known, but yeah, it turned out to be something simple. But generally speaking, you should be a lot better at debugging.
We can talk about debugging if you want a little bit. You say?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that keeps coming up actually now that I think about it. So let's where do I start with this? It's a tricky one to just swing right into. When you're debugging scripts or shell programs or whatever, one thing you can do is take use of the set built-in to do like set lowercase e. Lowercase e is really cool. As I understand it, the last, let's say you have a pipe or a list of things piped, piping one thing to the next thing. The very last one, if that exits with a non-zero exit status, the shell script will exit with that process's exit status, or that thing's exit status. So that E can be really good. It will stop the code. It will stop the proceeding code from executing if something exits. It can be really helpful to avoid a bunch of issues. There's also set U. This is really cool. If you have a variable which has been unset but is called for, then I believe it will exit out, or at the very least it will tell you. I don't know if it exits out, I can't remember, but at the very least it will tell you what the variable is, that it's not set or unassigned, or whatever the words it chooses to use. Another one is something that I mentioned it was basically Derek used it in his scripts, which I looked at in my last video. So there's one called pipe fail. So if you remember, I said about this and how the last thing in the pipe list of pipes. So if you have echo, I'm not sure you can do this, of course, but only this echo here, only its exit status will be used, and it will only, the shell script will only exit if this one has a non-zero exit status. But what if this second one fails? Well, that's where pipe fail comes in, because if any one of these has a non-zero exit status, then the shell script will exit, presumably with that process's exit status.
And you'd use set with whatever flag you're going to use at the beginning of the script, or?
Well, what you can do, where am I? Let's see, mplay, because of reasons. So right here, I've got this bash thing, and let's say I want to, because this is supported in bash, I'm surprised I'm not using user bin environment bash actually, but I can put an E here, right in the shebang. But you can't if you're using environment, so if you're doing that, you can't then go ahead and do this, because that's just not how environment works. But if you are using bin bash, or wherever the path is to your whichever shell you're using, then you can use E and U and all that kind of stuff if they are available in that shell. Or you can, if you don't put it there, you can put it, this is really, really, really cool, by the way, for debugging. Let's say you've got a certain little snippet of code which is playing up. Let's say my error function is playing up. All I have to do is put in X here. I mean, you can put in the E and U and all that other stuff, but I want to take this opportunity to show you X, which is amazing. So I can enable it with minus, even though you would think that would be to disable, but it's the other way around for some reason. So set plus X. So what that does is here, between those two sets, debugging will be enabled, or I don't really know how to, it's a certain kind of, it will show you all the output. So let's actually exit at the bottom there, so I don't actually run this, and or the rest of it at least. And now let's run bash mplay. Interesting. Why didn't that work? Maybe I do have that the wrong way around. Pretty sure I don't, but okay. Well, it's supposed to work. Oh, because I've not actually called for that function, have I? Okay, there we go. So that's the kind of output you would expect to see. So if I wanted to know why that wasn't working, well, that's because unary operated expected, which is actually, it would show that regardless of the set X thing. So let's have 1 or 0 even, so we don't muddy the exit status. So now we can actually see what it's doing line by line. So we can see that it's, we're using an error function, and we can see this is the message we've given. We've got printf here because this is part of the function now. It's a shame it doesn't show you that this isn't a function or something, but it's enough to get you going, to get you figuring out what's going on. And you've got error, and this is actually a variable, but it's showing you what that variable is, what's stored in that variable. So I believe this is, yeah, sort of. So basically, this X thing will show you what variables actually are. It doesn't show you the name of the variable, which kind of sucks. It just shows you what that variable's value actually is. It can be really useful if you want to figure out what the heck a variable actually is. But as cool as that is, especially for these tests, although you do have to try to figure out the syntax a little because it's kind of ugly with these quotes and stuff. But as cool as that is, there's another thing that I like to do, because honestly, that set X thing, I don't really tend to use it. It can be useful. You know, for example, let's say you've distributed a program, a shell program to somebody, to people or whatever, and somebody has an issue. Well, they can just, you know, do the whole, you give them a command that uses the X debugging thing, and then they send you that output, and then you can look through it and see what happened and all that stuff. But one thing you can do is, I guess I probably just have to check that out. So I'm probably minimizing it. What you can do is echo stuff. So there's really, you need to know the power of echo, or the power of, it is phenomenal. Let's say you are doing some really complicated stuff. Let's go to something complicated. Let's go to autoexec. It's a little bit more complicated at least. And we've got hopefully loads of if statements and stuff. Let's say I'm having an issue with these tests for whatever reason. What I can actually do is echo something here, which I usually actually do at the very start of the line, just so it stands out. So I can say echo some gibberish, something that I know that I will recognize. And then when I exit the program, I'll know that the code made it to this if statement, and I'll know that this condition is true. So if something is not happening as it should, or is happening but not quite in the way I want, at least I will know that it made it to this if statement. I don't know if that will sound particularly useful right now, but I promise you that is phenomenally useful. It's saved my bacon so many times. Just being able to know that it's reached an if statement or a loop or something. You can use it to like know when you've bailed out of a loop, or if you've even bailed out of a loop, or whatever. I don't know. You can use it for all sorts of reasons. And then there's of course echoing what variables are. So let's say we run signal handler, and we want to know what once it is equal to, or that's probably not very much use, but just imagine there's a variable and then there's some use to actually echo it. So echo force. I want to know what force is before we get to this statement, for whatever dumbass reason. Well, now I can know, because when I run this function, which is a signal handler function, so yeah, I guess to talk about that, I'd have to make sense of trap, and let's not get carried away with the details. So basically, you can use echo in this way to echo the result, or to echo the value of variables, to echo variables, basically. And this can be great because a lot of the times when you have errors, when you have something not working, one of the big common ones is that the variable isn't what you think it is. It's either empty because you typoed the damn name like a dumbass, which I've done so many times, or just for whatever reason, that variable is not what you think it is. So that's why it's important to echo that variable. I can't tell you how many times I've spent ages trying to figure out why something's not working, only to find out it was the bloody variable. So that's why I got into the habit of using echo quite religiously.
Okay, two things. One, Drishel, we know that TFL's turn-in is fading out a little bit. We can't do anything about that. It's going to be an internet problem. It's not happening a lot. We're missing some words. It's coming through on my end too. The other thing, can you? I hate it when it happens. Yeah, what is the -z test? I noticed it in autoexec there. That's
empty.
Oh, if it's empty. Okay.
Yeah, so you've got that for if it's not empty, but that is if it is empty.
Okay.
So username obviously is not empty, so that's not, that will echo true because user is not empty. But if I do this, my username actually has a value, so it's not empty. Sorry, yeah.
What are those called? So like, because there has to be like a list of those somewhere where I could see those, right?
Yeah, they're in a Bashman page. I can't remember what there's those. I mean, I usually just call. I don't even call them. I don't even think these flags. I mean, aside from flags, I don't know what you could call them. But they are here somewhere. I know one of them is files, so let's just look for that. This is usually what I do, honestly, because I can't remember all this is quite an extensive thing. There we go. So, is that it? No, that's not it. Use function names only. So many different versions of a file. It's somewhere in there. You'd have to go through it a while. I might have skipped part. There we go. But good Lord. Okay, so the section for that is conditional expressions. So just open up your man page, type / and type in conditional expressions if you're at the start of the man page or something, and then jump straight to this section, and then you'll see a whole list of them.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely take a look at that because I'm just very slowly getting learning those because those are really cool.
Oh yeah, they're amazingly useful. I don't use too many of them, honestly, but you know, file directory, if it exists, so the E one, B can be quite useful. Sometimes T can be quite useful if you're looking to match whether something is a terminal. That's pretty much it, really. I don't tend to use a lot of them, except for the Z and the N thing of these kinds, you know, those particular kinds. Mm-hmm. I think they're called file testing operators or flags or something.
Something like that. Okay.
What is it? What is it? What is it? Some people in chat might know where that's from.
Does anybody have any more questions for TFL? I'm sure he has answers. He has all the answers.
I'm sure he has answers. That's where you're wrong, my friend. You can also replace the brace with parentheses to run a function in a subshell. Oh, I think I know what they're on about. Like func echo high. Is that what they mean? Because that's not valid. Well, it's not valid anyway. There we go. Func. Fair enough. I learned something. Oh, wait, that's to put the function in the subshell, is it? Or is that just a bashism thing? I vaguely remember coming across that years ago, but I never really took. But apparently that's a thing. So a good job, Smoy, for bringing that up. That's cool. I would stick with braces, though, because just in case that does open up a subshell, because you probably don't want to be opening up a subshell. I think it probably would open up a subshell because I can see when that might be useful. Such as if you're CDing it or something. That's kind of cool, actually.
All right. Let's see here.
I should have made that coffee.
All right. So do you want to go for about another 20 minutes and we could just BS on some Linux stuff? So are you still using... Yeah. Are you still using Elementary OS, or are you back on just your regular Ubuntu install?
You mean you can't tell?
Well, you can
it's
now.
Just a background.
you can use, you know, your i3 or whatever on Elementary OS. You could easily install it. So,
I'm such an idiot. I just switched to one of my workspaces and opened up a crap ton of terminals with all the gaps and stuff just to show you. But like, hey, see, I'm on i3, but.
Yeah, we can't.
I'm only recording my terminal.
Yeah, we can't see that.
Yeah, I stopped using Elementary OS a little while back because, well, the only reason I really restored the backup again, or the main reason, was to get games running. But then I had issues with the NVIDIA drivers, so I just couldn't be asked with it in the end. So I'm back on my usual setup, and I think I'm done dicking about with Elementary OS, to be honest, at least for a while.
And you're still planning on sticking with 1804 until end of life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just got done with that Debian review, and man, some of the packages, even though they just had an update, some of the packages are just still really old.
Oh yeah.
So like that Perl YouTube subscriber count thing that you wrote me, that won't work in Debian because it doesn't have the proper version of Perl. The weather Python script that I have that outputs the temperature won't run because it doesn't have the proper version of Python installed. It's too old. Yeah. So and that's like a brand new version of Debian. So that was, I mean, that was a really big turnoff for me in terms of Debian because like you have to change to the back ports or whatever it's called in order to get that kind of stuff, and like then you should just use the unstable version of Debian to begin with.
I can't remember if I still have that Perl program thingy, that script, because I was thinking you could probably force it to work by just ignoring the check for the right version, because it probably would still work.
It ran it until the last 3 lines or something.
Oh, okay.
And then it had an error or something. It said version error, and then the last 3 lines, it echoed the last 3 lines for whatever reason. It was really weird. It works fine in Arch, worked fine in Ubuntu. It worked fine on something else that I was using on, so because I put that on all my computers.
It reminds me on the Linux event support forums, common questions I see, or common threads, just like the topic of the thread that they're making. It tends to be about like new Python versions and pretty much just Python versions. Everyone wants to install new Python versions, and then they wonder why their system is broken because they used PPAs and stuff.
Yeah. My biggest problem with Debian, outside of the older software, ended up being lack of some software in the repositories, because like Discord's not there in the regular repositories. Now you can get to it in some like other repository that you have to add, but I wasn't doing any of that stuff, right? So I ended up having to use a snap, and we all know my hatred of all things snaps. So
yeah, same.
That ended up being a pain, and just to go off on a complete other tangent, the snap version of Discord is old, and that version of Discord has a bug in it where any notifications that come through freeze the application for at least 2 minutes.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, and it's just it's the dumbest thing ever. I don't know. It has something to do with the interaction between that and whatever notification system you're using, because it happened in Firefox for a little while too. So maybe it's just I don't know what files. I think it was Dunst that was running, but I can't even really remember.
Why didn't you get it from the Discord website? That's where I downloaded it.
All right. Well, see, it has the deb package, and I tried to just install the deb package. I was like,
dependencies.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it just wouldn't install. I don't know.
I got you. I need to tell you something, because this is a lot of people get caught out by this. When if I install that, it fails, but it's not really failing. It's just informing you that there are missing dependencies. But one command will sort that really easily. Done. That will go out and install any missing dependencies. It will try to resolve dependency issues. And if it can't resolve it, that will just uninstall. It just basically won't install what you're trying to install.
I got to that point too and ran that exact command, and it just uninstalled Discord.
Oh, okay. In that case, yeah, I guess whatever was, yeah.
It probably would work fine in Ubuntu because it has those dependencies to install, but I'm assuming that the version numbers in Debian are wrong for that particular deb package, so it couldn't install them and satisfy the test or whatever it was going for.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so
it's a bummer.
Yeah, apparently the next long-term review I'm going to be, I have a poll up right now, and I saw it, yeah. The one that's winning right now is Artix Linux, and that's basically Arch without systemd.
Oh, of course.
Man, I was really hoping I was really hoping OpenSUSE would win. That's what I voted for. Really hoping OpenSUSE would, because I know I can use OpenSUSE. I've used it many times in the past. The one time I tried to install Artix, I was a complete failure at. So I don't know. Apparently, it's just like installing Arch, but I didn't find that to be my experience. So we'll see how that goes.
it's your channel. You can just say screw the poll and just go with the second winner.
I will go with the second choice. If I will try Arctics to install, I will try.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be honest
so
about, but I'm not going to put a lot of effort into it. If it fails one time, I'm done.
That's kind of how I was when I put up a poll to like say what should I switch to next. So I had Fedora KDE and one. I tried it, it failed. It wouldn't even get to the installer properly. So I was like, okay, screw this. So I tried the second place one, which was Fedora Gnome, I think.
Yeah, so there's a good chance that it's going to end up being OpenSUSE that I go to next. It'll be interesting because I've never installed a window manager on OpenSUSE before. I'm assuming they have things like R3 and stuff in their repos, but I don't know how well like something like DWM would install, because DWM has some interesting dependencies. Like in Ubuntu, they have some xlib dependencies that you have to install on the side that you don't have to do in Arch. So that'll be interesting to see.
One of these days, I'll switch to Arch. One of these days.
Probably about the same amount of time. Probably about the same time I installed Gentoo.
Most likely. Not that I'm going to be installing Gentoo anytime soon.
Tyler gets to pick our next challenge for the podcast. We should talk him into choosing. We all have to install the one distro we said we'd never install. So you'll install Arch, I'll do Gentoo, and Tyler will have to do Debian. But he can't Google the ISO. He has to find it through the website.
Why am I being roped into this?
Oh, didn't you know?
I'm not installing Arch. Nuh-uh. I mean, maybe in a virtual machine. I've actually thought about doing that in a virtual machine and just like live streaming installing Arch. It's been so long since I've done it. It'd probably be quite hilarious to watch me.
So the thing is so I've installed vanilla Arch the true way, like the true Arch way. You go through the terminal and all the commands and stuff like that. And I've done it.
Yeah,
I got my user participation badge that you get when you install Arch. But once you have that, there's no sense in installing Arch that way. They're just not. There are several scripts out there that will install Arch for you. It's just you go and change your settings in the config file and do / whatever and run that script, and it does it for you.
I actually started writing one of those.
That's the lazy man's way of installing Arch, and that's the way I'll always install vanilla Arch. I think it's called the Arch Linux install script. I think it's exactly what it's called, and it's cool. Regularly maintained, and that's what you do. And it's so simple. And like I said, even the people who are developing Arch know that their installer is terrible because they've gone through and actually created now a guided installer that's included on every ISO. It's terrible, but it's there. Yeah. It's not. It doesn't work great. At least the last time I saw like a video on it, it was kind of buggy. But that's something that they'll fix over time, and it wouldn't surprise me if eventually that becomes like the default way of installing Arch, and that's a guided installer for Arch Linux.
Apparently, we should all try Linux from scratch.
No, we're more likely to install Gentoo.
Yeah, that's so true. Like I looked at the document. I was actually gonna really get stuck in scratch, but no, and also no, just no, no. Too much time.
Yeah.
Too much faff. Too much kerfuffle.
Arch installation is also easy. I didn't say it was hard. I just said it was pointless when there are other easier ways to do it.
I hate installing Arch.
More of the thing is everybody who has installed Arch seems like there's some Linux god, like they've accomplished something that is noteworthy. Like as a lot of people say, installing Arch is actually fairly easy. It's just, I mean, the hardest part I always found was connecting to Wi-Fi, and even that, after you learn how to do it, is perfectly fine. Especially with this new way. The older way used to be harder, but it's not an achievement really. It's just, it doesn't make you a elite hacker just because you installed Arch because it happens to have a terminal installer. I mean, it's just so
exactly.
It's so silly. I've never understood the the feeling of entitlement the Arch people get. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm an Arch, like, I like the AUR
You are
more.
Arch people.
like I'm a member of that community, but I don't understand the feelings of superiority they seem to get just because they happen to know how to type a few terminal commands.
I use Arch, by the way.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's just because you don't use the Calamares or the Ubiquity installer doesn't mean you're, sometimes somehow better than those people who do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a graphical installer.
Anyone can follow a guide.
Yeah.
That tells you what commands to run. But the way I did it was to actually, I didn't just follow the guide. I learned all the commands I was using because that's how I work. I learn what I'm using so I know what the heck I'm actually doing. It sits in my memory for longer that way. And I actually learned a lot of information, a lot of stuff that I can use or that I have used in Ubuntu, which is and other distributions, which is really cool. Such as time date control. Could go with all that.
Yep. Yeah, I don't.
And load keys.
You have to change the keyboard. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the only in that Arch Linux script I was talking about. That's the only command you have to actually run on the command line before you.
Oh.
Because and even then, I think it would still work fine because it defaults to US or whatever.
Yeah, it's great for you.
Well, I mean, you got to remember the United States is the only country that exists. Me, man, I'm an American, bro. Yeah, yeehaw.
Thinks every single American. Oh, that was a well-placed yeehaw. Because Americans are all Southerners going yeehaw.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be like you British people and have that really weird enter key. I mean, why would I want that?
We've got a weird enter key.
You guys don't use the. You don't use the, what is it, the ISO? Maybe that's Europe.
We do have an enter key. We've actually got a return. There are two enters. Back in the day, the enter key that's the biggest one is actually, that used to be called the return key, but then they changed it on keyboards.
So on your keyboard, the return key or whatever the enter key is not shaped like an L? Like an upside down L?
Yeah, it is shaped like an upside down L.
Yeah, that's not the way it is here. Ours is just a straight line. That's actually a different keyboard layout. That's the reason why it's so hard, because there's like a ton of like Linux laptop manufacturers that are based over in Europe and Great Britain and stuff, and they make some really good hardware, and it's actually not really all that expensive, but none of them offer ANSI keyboard layouts. They all offer that weird ass keyboard layout with the thing. It makes the shift key, the left shift key smaller than it is on ours, and it's also.
Oh yeah, my shift key's tiny. Yeah. I've gotten used to it, but I prefer the bigger shift key. Mm-hmm. One thing I really hate about the American layout is where the pipe is. Like, I use a pipe religiously, of course, in programming and on the command line for shell and stuff, obviously. And yeah, I mean, the pipe is just so easy. For me, it's just a left pinky on the shift key and then ring finger on the pipe, and that's it.
Yeah, it would be a lot harder on ours because it's further to the left or right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, left, basically the same direction.
Oh, yeah, totally.
TFL, why do you use Linux and not Windows? All you do is terminal.
You've just answered the question. Duh.
That was definitely
terminal.
That was an English Bob question if I ever heard one.
I know. I was reading it as well. A typical classic English Bob.
And of course, Peter popped in and says, "Is this a Gentoo installation?" No.
Never. Has hell frozen over? If not, then no.
Like, I have a Patreon goal, people. I want all your money before I do that.
Do I know a famous Unix quote? The famous Unix quote? I guess not. Or unless the quote is right on a pipe and no one to read it.
There's going to be that's going to be like the start of a joke or something.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Linux from scratch live stream when? No.
I doubt it. Ever happening. I don't know. The thing is, you hear people talk. I mean, at least with the Gentoo stuff, there are people out there running it. Like, you see other YouTubers that run Gentoo. I've never seen a single YouTuber that I've ever followed actually running Linux from scratch. Have you?
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Nobody does it.
Then you have people here saying, "Well, Linux from scratch, Linux from scratch." Like, impromptu poll: anybody in the chat right now actually running Linux from scratch?
I doubt it. In fact, I can almost guarantee it.
Like I don't think there is. I'm surprised that project is even still is that project even still maintained?
Pretty sure it's still going. It's probably always going to be going. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are distributions out there that actually use TFL, that use Linux from scratch.
Yeah. Well, their website is very much very minimal. How nice.
There is one thing I really want to do, which I scratched the surface a little bit ages ago, and it went okay. I just couldn't figure out what to do next because I can't find any guides on it or anything. There's no documentation. But what I would like to do is bootstrap Ubuntu. You know how when you're installing Arch, the Arch way, you basically install Arch from within Arch? Mm-hmm. Well, I want to do that with Ubuntu. I want to install Ubuntu from within Ubuntu. And there's actually a special TGZ file, an archive, just for that reason. I think it's called, I don't know, Ubuntu Bootstrap or something like that. And it's pretty cool. You just extract it, true in, and then install it from there. But I couldn't figure out. I mean, aside from trooting in and installing it that way, I mean, sure, I could do stuff in there, but there was something that tripped me up ages ago. I can't remember what the heck it was. I never got anywhere after that. But it would be really cool to do that.
Yeah, it does sound interesting.
I love the idea of just installing a distribution from distribution, because now I kind of want to just go into a distribution and install a distribution from that distribution, then go into that distribution, install a distribution from that distributionception, basically. That would be awesome. How deep can you go?
The mods of the Arch Discord use LFS. So
interesting.
Dash Gregor apparently runs LFS. I don't know who that is.
I wonder if Arch Linux was actually, like, it came from Linux from scratch, if they used that and went from there, basically.
I don't know.
Is there anyone in chat using a weird distro called Arch? Never heard of it. It sounds crap.
It's inspired by Crux.
Never heard of that.
Me either. Oh, well, that was.
Am I still cutting out, by the way?
You were a few minutes ago, but it wasn't too bad. It was just like a word every 20 words or so.
Okay.
You were probably being censored by the man.
Most likely.
Will there ever be a collab with the Linux experiment at some point? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think he's ever done a collab with anybody, honestly. Although I think he's been on a podcast with Linux for Everyone. I think that's the guy from Forbes. So it's possible that he does it just with big YouTubers. He does follow me on Twitter. He does subscribe to the channel, I believe.
That's cool.
I don't think he does collabs with just anybody.
Hey, we're not just anybody. We're part of the crew, I'll have you know.
We got our own little, like, we have our own Linux YouTuber community. Just, you know, we're the little guys.
Yeah, doing our thing.
Yeah. We don't need a million subscribers. We'd like us a million subscribers, but...
Yeah, we would like them, but we don't need it.
Very happy with what we have. I don't want
English
to
Bob said Arch is for noobs. Just putting that out there.
Well, I do say I'm an eternal Linux noob, and I use an Arch-based distro. Yeah. So...
Yeah.
I get a lot of shit for using Arch-based distro, not vanilla Arch, but I can't help it. That's what I like to do. I like Arch better. If for no other reason that it will allow OBS to actually capture Discord without me being on the same workspace.
I've seen similar sort of slanderous type comments from people who original Ubuntu, or like you use like Linux Mint or whatever else, which is based on Ubuntu, and then people get at you for not using just plain Ubuntu. Well, I guess it's pretty much everywhere.
Well, if that's such a crime, then we'd all have to go through and we'd all have to either use Debian or Arch or something like Solus.
Fedora. We can't use Fedora. We'd have to use Red Hat.
You'd have to use Red Hat. So there'd be like 4 distros. That's all there'd be. If we had to use the mothership.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's kind of dumb for people to piss and moan about that stuff. I mean, part of what makes Linux great is the choice, right? It's the selection, of freedom to choose and do what we want and create what we want. It's kind of to me at least, is part of what makes it so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I totally
to just like arbitrarily say, oh, you can't use that, you have this.
I mean, sometimes the derivatives are just better than the original. I mean, look at Debian. I mean, a lot of the Debian derivatives are just better than Debian. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Debian. It's just you have to put more work into it. Like, if Ubuntu is miles and away more user friendly than Debian ever will be.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the same reason why Linux Mint exists, right? It's like they didn't care for Unity, so they decided to go create Cinnamon and decided to create a distribution around it. So I mean,
now look at Linux Mint. It's pretty cool.
So I mean, that's the reason why these derivatives exist, and a lot of times they, have good ideas. Sometimes they piss me off, but for the most part, it's a good thing. For the most part, and you talked about this in one of your videos, how you can't force developers to, focus on things in order to reduce duplication of effort. And while duplication of effort definitely does piss me off, it's still a good thing that developers can pretty much work on whatever they want to work on. This isn't Microsoft where they, have to do whatever the guy at the top says they have to do. Yeah,
exactly. I'm pretty pissed off with Canonical because they seem to have abandoned the whole mini.iso thing, which is why I'm not on 2004. Or is it 2104? Whichever one.
What would you... I'm not an Ubuntu guy, so why couldn't you install the like Ubuntu server and just turn that into your desktop thing? Because you can install all the same packages and stuff, but that's headless.
I probably could, but why release Ubuntu server and mini.iso if they are not different? And then if they are different, well, I don't want a server. I'm not trying to create a server. I don't know what it sets by default in that server environment. It could set a whole bunch of server-related stuff that I don't want to use. I simply don't know what actually they haven't defined what that makes it the server environment.
It's just going to be missing. It's going to be missing packages. Is what is going to be the end of the day. Probably things that would.
Well, not just that. You can. I mean, I don't know. They could be setting kernel parameters, configuring.
That's a good point.
There's so many things rather than just packages. There's a whole lot of other aspects too.
I'm sure somebody has gone through and. I mean, they're almost. It's weird that somebody hasn't come up. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, especially as Debian has mini.iso. Like, they've had a mini.iso for years, and so is Ubuntu. But now suddenly they've like, no, I don't do that anymore because nobody uses it. I use it. They should be making mini.iso for me. I'm over here like going on about how amazing mini.iso is, and like trying to like lift up Ubuntu as not just this newbie distribution. You can actually have a more advanced setup on, and then they go and abandon mini.iso. It pisses me off.
I think the reason why they did it is because they included the minimal install on the standard ISO.
Yeah, but
it's not. I know it's not. I know it's not the same, but that's probably the reason why they did it.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah.
What is the ISO? What is the image like for the Raspberry Pi version of Ubuntu? Because it's that. I wonder what that includes and doesn't include. It probably doesn't include things that you'd need to run on.
For one thing, it will have an ARM kernel.
Yeah, that's true. I always forget about that.
So probably won't be able to boot it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I keep looking at for Ubuntu things that don't include the installer.
It'll also have software compiled for ARM, so I probably won't be able to use all of the software.
Yeah.
Or at least some of them, Firefox maybe, for example.
That is weird that they took that away.
Oh, I love that mini.iso so much. It's been my go-to way to install years, and yeah, just the fact that they say no now is annoys me. Like, I will have to switch to Debian. I'm not. I mean, the alternative is to either go for the server one and just go at it and see what happens and see if it's configured in a particularly different way. And if I'm lucky, it's not, unless you tell it to. Or I could do what I used to do back into the day, which is install something like Ubuntu and just tear its guts out, just completely disembowel it and just take out all of its trash, and then build it up myself like I would if I were using mini.iso.
I wonder if there are. I mean, so like there are Debian-based distros that have the minimal installs too, like Sparky, and I think MX Linux has a minimal install as well. So I wonder if there are like Ubuntu-based derivatives that have the same thing.
So then I could just install that instead. Yeah, that could work. But honestly, I mean, if I have to resort to that, then I would just switch to Debian.
Yeah.
Because they do have a mini.iso, and they probably always will.
Well, all the default ISOs of Debian are actually that way. So all you get is the installer.
Awesome.
Unless you specifically choose an ISO that has like a live environment, which is what I ended up doing because it just seemed like the thing to do, seeing as how I needed the non-free ISO anyways.
Yeah. Have you ever heard about that a rolling release version of Debian?
What's it called? It starts with an S, right?
I have no. Oh, SID.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never used it.
Yeah, same.
Ubuntu has a rolling release script or whatever too that Martin Wimpress created called Rolling Rhino.
That's it. Yeah, Rolling Rhino.
Yeah, that's for Ubuntu. The thing with it is I don't think that he's actually kept that script up to date, so I don't know if it would work still.
Yeah. That'd be really cool. I'd love to have a rolling release Ubuntu. I mean, just to try it out and see what it's like. I don't know how reliable it would be.
How would your system, I mean, you wouldn't want to do this without having proper backups of it, obviously, but
yeah, what
would an in-place upgrade to 20.04 look like just on your system? Because you can do that. I mean, you might have to go through the steps. Could you like go to well, I mean,
yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, you should be able to go from one LTS to the other just in place.
There is actually something called an Ubuntu upgrade or something. I always uninstall it, but I can't remember what package it's part of. An Ubuntu core upgrader or something. I don't know. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, there is a package that suggests to me you can use that package or a binary within that package to go up to the next major release.
So dist upgrade was the one that I used to use. Dist upgrade.
But that takes you up only a minor release.
Minor release, right? Yeah. But there should. I mean, there has to be a way up.
I see where you're going with that, though. Because if that actually works, I could just install 1804 there, but I doubt you can go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Maybe you can. I don't know. I mean, that'd be incredible if you could. Problem is, though, like, I mean, going up a major release in place like that is sketchy, very sketchy.
Well, yeah, that's why you'd want to obviously make sure you're fully backed up. Because I mean, then you would,
especially in my minimalistic setup where there's fewer things moving around, fewer moving parts, it could work quite well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you could ever do is try it.
I'm not going to do that right now, of course, but yeah. That would be fun. See if I can find out what the hell this package is. I always uninstall it.
Update manager? No, that's not going to be it.
It might have update in the name.
So according to the Ubuntu.com, do release upgrade -d.
Release and then upgrade. Ubuntu release upgrader. Manage release upgrade. So there's update-manager.core, which apparently manage release upgrades. But there's also Ubuntu release -upgrader-core -dtk-qt.
Wait, I'm gonna send you a link to the direct from Ubuntu.com instructions for upgrading from 18.04 to 20.04, because you can't go directly to one LTS to the other. And then the command line stuff is at the bottom of the article.
Discord's being super slow.
Yeah, it sucks. It doesn't like doing multiple things at once, but the link will be there for after if you want it.
Okay, thanks. Why the hell did they write it in Electron, seriously?
All right, you got to remember, I'm not a developer, so calling developers lazy, but I think it's not necessarily laziness, but convenience. Like it's just so
Maybe
much.
That's just the only language they know, or something.
Well, they write it in. Well, because they want it cross-platform, but they don't want to have to write in. I don't know. It's weird because you can still write. I mean, it's not as if Linux doesn't support something like C++ or Python or something. So I mean, you could write it in one of those programming languages and it'd still be cross-platform, outside of adding some whatever in order to get them to run. But I mean, it probably does add a lot more work, and I just don't know because not a developer. So the real question we have to ask is, why does Electron suck? If Electron was actually good, we wouldn't care. Like, if it just ran really well, it'd be good. All right, I think we should wrap this up. I think I've actually lost TFL. So I don't know whether or not use Arch or Debian. You only install what you want. So I seem to have lost TerminalForLife, which is disappointing. So he won't get to say goodbye. We'll see if we can actually get him back. He may have lost his internet because he was having internet problems. I'll give him a minute. Electron is the easiest platform to work on. I don't know really anything about it. All I know is Electron oftentimes blows. Yeah. As a concept, Electron is good for cross-platform applications, but man is hungry on resources. Yeah, that's the problem. Just for whatever reason, it loves its memory. But the reason why it loves its memory is because it's based on Chromium, and Chromium has its own memory problems. Right? It doesn't look like he's going to be coming back. Something Arch scared him off.
Hello.
He's back.
I had to restart Discord completely. I had to actually X-kill it because even pkill wouldn't work.
Well, I told you about the one version of Discord freezing. That maybe you're using that version of Discord. Oh, you want to know what? I bet you me sending you that message froze your Discord. I bet you that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Because when I went to go back on Discord and browse to it just was so slow, so laggy.
Discord is terrible.
Yeah. Just as we were slagging it off because it's written in Electron and then it dies on me.
Yes.
Just typical.
All right, I think we should wrap this up. So is there anything else you'd like to say? We've been going for almost 2 hours. So
damn.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I think I'm good.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
I'm ready to call it quits as well because I'm pretty knackered.
Yeah, it's getting late over there, so we don't want to keep it too late. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll definitely do this again because this is a lot of fun.
Thank you, everyone.
So thanks for watching. Before I go, I'd like to take a moment to thank my current patrons, if I can. Devon, Chris, EastCoastWeb, Gentoo, Fun2, Marcus, Maeglin, Sven, Jackson, Knife and Tool, Joshua, Lee, Mitchell, ArchSinner, Marek, Camp, Mr. Fox. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Bruce.